Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We, of course, start here at home, where President Bola Tinubu has established the Presidential Economic Coordination Council and the Economic Management Team Emergency Taskforce to enhance Nigeria's economic governance frameworks. Chaired by the President, the PECC includes key government figures such as the Vice President, Senate President, and Governors Forum Chairman. Private sector leaders like Aliko Dangote and Tony Elumelu will serve on the PECC for 1 year. Meanwhile, the EET, chaired by the Coordinating Minister for the Economy and Minister of Finance, has been tasked with formulating and executing an emergency economic plan within the next 6 months. The Economic Management Team, established in 2023 and chaired by the Minister of Finance, will suspend its meetings for the same duration to allow the EET to fulfill its mandate. All right, those are the developments from the economic side of things. Rufai, your take on this?
So the president, I think this is following up from the first meeting they had with some of those business leaders, and now they've had a more expanded team. Anyway, the vice president is still there. We all know the constitutional role of the vice president as regards the economy, but as they said, that meeting will be suspended for a while this team works. The mandate of the team pretty much is to come up with resolution and ideas, to be able to prop up the economy when everything is still incumbent on the president taking this advice. We've gone through this route before, albeit with another nomenclature during the Buhari administration. Ayo Salami, I keep saying Ayo Salami, Dr. Doyin Salami was the leader of that panel. And you remember then in Buhari's time, you had the likes of current president of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo. They were pretty much economists. Bez Makriwane was also there last time. But this time, Doyin Salami is there. You've got the likes of Funke Okpeki, of Main One, in the tech space. And you also have the likes of Chidi Agere, which, if my memory serves me right, Chidi Agere should be about probably the youngest of GIG Motors there, and also of Jet Motors, because it's also an auto manufacturer in the country. And you got the likes of the big hitters, like the likes of Aliko Dangote, Tony Elumelu. Pretty much, these are the stakeholders, and a couple of other ministers, state governors in the fray, and the vice president in there, to be able to forge a way forward for the economy. But what are going to be the dynamics? The dynamics really, to be able to restart this economy, will be how we deal with inflation. The Economist Intelligence Unit is saying that the best case scenarios for us, maybe top of the end of the year, for inflation will be about 24-25%, if we can get that. But also there are so many indicators that say that in our fight for inflation, we've increased interest rates, but we will also see some tick points for inflation. Finally, when they finish the wage negotiations and wages definitely increase, it will come with a attendant level of inflation. Probably we're going to fight that to the end of the year or first quarter next year before we start to see, things pan out a whole lot better. Also will be about productivity and revenue for the economy. Yes, we've been able to, by raising interest rate, we're getting a lot of foreign portfolio investment coming, but it's hot money. It's not really developmental long-term investment money. How we can show our potential as regards, productivity and increasing scale. Cocoa has proven to be a very veritable platform now. Cocoa all of a sudden has gone up to about 9,000, 9,000 US per metric ton. And we're just doing about 250,000, metric tons a year. Formerly, we used to do, in the 70s, we used to do about 450,000 metric tons. That was, in fact, our highest yield in 73, 74 for cocoa. We projected that we're going to inch it up to over 400,000 metric tons, but we've not done that in 2024. So probably agricultural scale, value-added good and things like this. I think these are some of the ideas that these people will be passing forward. And also pretty much the general productivity malaise and the fact that underemployment and, low employment number, low employability numbers in the economy and things like that. So these are some of the attacks that they will be looking at. But all of this is also incumbent on the fiscal side. The monetary side is pushing hard as we speak, but also will the fiscal side be able to match them up? But it will also be the president taking these resolutions in and out and trying to forge a way forward for the economy. But it's a good one. Welcome development. Congratulations to a couple of them. If my memory serves me right, Additional 2 is also there. Big player in the power sector. Congratulations on the people. Wish them a lot of luck. As long as Nigeria succeeds, that's our priority.
Absolutely.
Okay, good optics. Just James Cavill, who said, is the economy stupid? The economy. It is good optics because what President Tinubu has been able to push across is that the economy is a big challenge that Nigeria has. And that's consistent with the claims by the coordinating minister of the economy, Wale Edun, the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Bagudu, and other key players, including the National Security Advisor within the government, that they inherited a defective economic structure. So in terms of governance, in terms of defining a framework, in terms of projecting that, managing the economy, rescuing the economy is a national emergency, President Tinubu yesterday announced these three different committees. You have the Presidential Economic Management Committee, what is called the PECC, a 31-man committee, which the president himself chairs. That's the apex body. And that apex body, again, signals the point that the president understands the fact that the buck stops at his desk. And if you look at the membership of that 31-man committee, you have all the ministers there, and you have key persons from the organized private sector. Those key persons from the organized private sector can be divided into two categories. The usual key players within the Nigerian economy: Samad Rabiu of Boa Group, Aliko Dangote of the Dangote Group. And then, of course, you have some other key players there. Tony Elumelu, everybody knows Tony Elumelu. But, in that group, I didn't see Femi Otedo's last name there. I was wondering, maybe he asked to be a commitment. But what is important about that 31-man committee is that there are fresh names. Chidi Ajeri is into transportation, the GIG Motors Group. He brings something fresh. Kola Adesina's name shows up. He's into oil and gas, communications, the future of everything, and he has very significant experience. There is a Miss Amina Mena, who is also on that list. There is a Patrick Ukiwo III, who is, an economist. So it's very good to see that, there are new names on that list other than the usual culprits, who are in the economy. And there are persons who say, if you want to manage the Nigerian economy, why involve the same persons who are the biggest players within the Nigerian economy? But that's another question entirely. I think that it is good that there will be some fresh voices. Why include, for example, in any of the committees, Bismarck Rewane or Dr. Doyin Salami, people who could not make a difference under the Buhari government. But maybe perhaps this is the whole idea about continuity, about transition. Let us know what the former people there did and what these new persons will do. Then there is a 19-man committee, which is called the Taskforce, which will be chaired by the coordinating minister of the economy. That's Wale Edun, who is also Minister of Finance. Now, that economic emergency task force called the EET has a 6-month mandate to prepare, a blueprint to be considered by the larger committee of 31. And then there is a 14-man committee, which includes also other people, including state governors and all of that. And they are supposed to provide, some kind of a vision. The working group under the PECC, which is chaired by the president. Now that 14-man committee, we're told, is not going to start work until the task force led by Edun, and also that 14-man committee is also led by Edun. They won't start work until the EET submits the blueprint for consideration. I think the significance of it, I repeat, is that the president is showing that he understands that the economy is important, that we have an emergency in the economic sector. If your inflation rate is so high, if food inflation is over 37%, then of course, yes, there is an emergency. And what we have seen this week alone is the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank, hiking rates further with the expectation that the Naira will become more stable and that the foreign exchange regime will be much better. And then you have all of a sudden the president of Nigeria deploying, 3 different teams to focus almost on a daily basis on the task. The emergency task force will be meeting twice a week. That's how serious the president considers the problem. So in terms of signaling, it makes sense. But Nigerians should be more interested in outcomes. It's very easy in government for you to keep holding meetings. Olarotimi calls it holding talks. It's not the talks that are important. It is the outcome. We had the Presidential Advisory Committee under Buhari. What came out of it? Not much. So this is where we are. But beyond all of this, where then is the role of the National Economic Council? The National Economic Council is a creation of the Constitution, and it is chaired by the Vice President. But now the Vice President has been made, part of the Presidential Economic Council, the PECC. So what then happens? That in this new structure that they have suddenly announced, there was no reference to the National Economic Council. How does the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President, which includes all the state governors, how does that group, interface with this new governance, economic governance structure that the president has announced? That, again, is one area, I hope it's not a fault line, that we need to focus upon.
Right, very well said, Dr. Abati, as always. And of course, just to piggyback off of what you've both mentioned, the fact that there's several new names, this sort of structure is not new. We've seen it several, and not just in Nigeria, across countries around the world. So the introduction of some fresh blood is exciting. And in the same spirit, I do hope moving forward, we'll be able to also possibly engage some international experts as well in these committees. You look at a country like South Africa, for example, who have their own Presidential Economic Advisory Committee, and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was once appointed onto that body. So I think moving forward, beyond getting the best brains in Nigeria, it would be quite a breath of fresh air to also see some of the best international brains come on board and make sure that things are moving forward in the right direction. And of course, the second point is that in terms of agenda, I do hope that as we see the CBN pushing forward, we can see an equilibrium between monetary policy and fiscal policy. That would be the ultimate signaling that we would require as a result of success of all of these bodies that have been created. Now we move on to more stories from the day. The embattled Labour Party chairman, Julius Abure, has been re-elected as the party's national chairman for a second term. Abure was re-elected by a unanimous affirmation of delegates at the party's national convention in Nnewi, Anambra State. Chairman of the National Convention and Deputy Governor of Abia State, excuse me, that's Ikechukwu Emetu, declared him the winner during the event, which was attended by some party leaders and members. Also at the convention, delegates recommended that the 2027 presidential ticket be solely reserved for its former presidential candidate, Peter Obi, even though he was absent at the convention. The 387 delegates also elected the party's working committee members. At the same time, slots for representatives of the NLC and the Trade Union Congress were left vacant.
Everyone here present as delegates in this very national convention, by the powers bestowed upon me as the chairman of this very convention, I hereby declare Barrister Julius Abure.
And gratitude to all the delegates to this national convention for the trust and the confidence reposed in us to continue as members of the national committee. I assure you that we continue to give forceful leadership, proactive leadership. We continue to give result-oriented leadership to this party. I assure you that we will never compromise the ideology, the integrity, and the dignity of the party.
Well, meanwhile, the leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress says it will not accord Julius Abure any form of recognition following his re-election as Labour Party national chairman. Describing the convention as a charade, NLC spokesman Benson Upa told journalists that the Congress will never back the party under Abure's leadership. He adds that the return of Abure as national chairman was a nullity as far as the NLC is concerned, as it did not follow the right national convention guidelines and procedures. Labour Party, NLC continue to dominate headlines, and we will continue with that conversation, here in studio.
I mean, it has to be said, I think it's Bukola Lemide, Nigerian singer Asha, that says there's fire on the mountain. The Labour Party stinks big time. And I think they've become an albatross of their success in the last elections. And that's why I don't take political parties seriously, and I don't take politicians seriously, especially in Nigeria, because to a large extent, it's always about personal interest. The party is disgruntled. The party originally is a pre-existing court order, by Justice Gabriel Kolawole, if my memory serves me right, that talks about the fact that the NLC pretty much founded the party and it has a mainstay of the party. There's been loggerheads between Abure and the NLC as regards, and that's why they say they will not recognize Abure. In fact, even the presidential candidate of the party was not there. INEC did not monitor this. They had security agents everywhere to be able to shut people out, people that they felt were not in their own interests. And so they brought about this team. And the fight has been on for a while. Should we go back to the Lamidia Papa faction fight, or the Arabambe faction fight, or the Abure faction fight? Many allegations against Abure. And now the NLC is trying to take back the political party, because when you look at it, initially they were the founders, and labor unions do play a very major role in politics in countries around the world. I mean, we all remember the role Keir Hardie played as regards founding the Labour Party in England, and his unionist positions, and the rich partnership between the likes of Unite and the Labour Party with Len McCloskey and Jeremy Corbyn, then when he was in the helms of affairs of the Labour Party. So it's just a party that is in disarray as we speak. We'll see when the NLC has finally said they're going to have their own convention. They're going to go through their own process that's going to involve everybody on the ward level and all of that. So we'll see how that pans out. But the drama in the Labour Party is not yet over. It stinks to the high heavens. There's fire on the mountain. I mean, if there should be a track they should play on repeat now, probably it should be a track from one of my favorite rock bands called Dire Straits, because the Labour Party is in dire straits.
Okay, I think at stake here is the ownership of the Labour Party. And I think that the politics over the ownership, who controls the Labour Party of Nigeria, is unfortunate. And it's a big disappointment to many of the persons who consider the Labour Party an alternative to the existing status quo in the 2023 general election. The question those persons who supported the Labour Party would perhaps appropriately ask themselves would be, okay, if we had voted and the Labour Party had won, is this what Nigeria will be dealing with? So what we're dealing with here, again, beyond their own ego problems within the party, is the crisis of internal democracy. The other parties may manage their issues better, but internal democracy politics is still a major issue in Nigerian political parties, as it is a major issue for constitutional democracy in other African countries. The third point has to do with the fact that the Labour Party of Nigeria, founded in 2002, is modeled after the Labour Party of the United Kingdom, which was founded in 1900. There's a group in the UK called TULU, the Trade Union and Labour Party Organization. Now, under the TULU, and I've said this before on this program, there are 11 affiliate unions of the Labour Party, including Unison, including Unite. And these Labour parties, they fund the party. And so that's the model we have in Nigeria, whereby the NLC, that's the Nigerian Labour Congress, and the Trade Union Congress, are part of the Labour Party of Nigeria. And what is the purpose? To defend, originally in 2002, the ideas, the principles of social democracy, In fact, the Labour Party of Nigeria used to be called the Party for Social Democracy. And as is the case in the United Kingdom, the whole objective is to make sure that the ordinary people, the working class, the otherwise marginalized members of society have a voice in the political process of Nigeria. And that's where NLC-TUC seem to be coming from, to say, this is our party, the party for the working class people of Nigeria. So if they've run into an ideological ditch, that's something that everybody should be worried about. Because after all, the whole idea of democratic representation is to allow multiple voices to play. Well, it's noteworthy that Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the party, was not in Nnewi at the Nnewi convention. Alex Otti, the governor that emerged on the platform of the party, was also not there. Prominent members of the political party also did not show up. But that in itself is another issue. What role will these persons, who are the public faces of the political party, what roles are they going to play instead of remaining silent? The BOT, Board of Trustees of the party, led by Comrade Ejiofor, says that what happened in Nnewi was a sham. The people in Nnewi, they had a tumultuous convention, as they called it, with some people, some persons they classified as thugs, trying to disrupt it with heavy military presence. What does that say about Labour Party as a democratic organization? These are issues that could have implications for the Labour Party as we move towards 2027. Even if the Julius Abure, crowd in Nnewi said that Peter Obi will still be their candidate in 2027. Well, they are not in a position to decide for him. Peter Obi may just decide to join another party. He can even join ZLP, which is another branch of the Labour Party. And then you will have all these people, Akpakpa, Lamidi Akpakpa, Abayomi Arabambi. I think it's most unfortunate for persons who invested their hopes and aspirations in the Labour Party as their party of choice in the 2023 general elections. Less than a year after, the party is unraveling.
That's right. Excuse me, gosh, my voice is having a show today. I think it is unfortunate that the Labour Party seems to be falling into the trap that several youthful opposition and populist parties across the continent do fall into. And this is the same trap that usually leaves them just hanging at the balance at every single election, popular enough to garner support, but never quite organized or structured enough to actually gain power or to become a ruling party. These dynamics are unfortunate because these are fundamental principles. How is your leadership elected? What does a convention look like? Who are the people that matter? These are basic fundamentals. We haven't even begun to discuss ideology. We haven't even begun to discuss vision going forward. We would have loved to have been hearing their ideas and commentary about developments that are currently going on with the economy and with the current government's policies. But no, unfortunately, they're too embroiled in who gets what when, which is very unfortunate when there's no national cake to share yet. What will happen when there is a national cake to share? So it's still early days, of course, when we're looking at the context of the next election. So we do hope that in the coming years, in the next 3 years, the Labour Party will be able to get their house in order so that we can maintain a democracy where there are several robust, credible political parties with integrity that voters can choose from at the ballot. Now, let's change the pace just a little bit as we take a look at how theatre practitioners and lovers of the arts and creative industry of Nigeria celebrated the annual World Theatre Day 2024, held on Wednesday, 27th of March, with the theme Unbundling Nigeria's Creative Economy for a Sustainable Future. Arise Morning Show producer Ozi Okoli attended the event.
The 2024 World Theatre Day was celebrated in Nigeria by the National Association of Nigerian Theatre Arts Practitioners, NANTAP.
And love and honesty to grow and live and just and to rule.
The event, which kick-started at the Blue Picture Cinema in Onikan, Lagos, brought together a panel of discussants on the theme Unbundling Nigeria's Creative Economy for Sustainable Future.
There is the need for us as practitioners in Nigeria to begin to understand the entire scope of what the creative economy is. And that's why we chose the theme unbundling. We want to unbundle it, break it down, and how each of the elements, each of the components contributes to making a greater creative economy.
The second phase of the celebration took place at the Kongi Harvest Hall in Freedom Park with Arise News morning show anchor Dr. Ruben Abati, a thespian from University of Calabar, as the keynote speaker.
Theatre was part of the lives of the people. Even here in Lagos and other places, there were theatres. Many will remember the J.K. Randall Hall. Many will remember the Jos Repertory Theatre, where you have, what's his name now? Otejude, Patrick Otejude, you know, and also in River State and elsewhere. In many of these states also, we had cultural centers that had performances. Now, what you have, when you have a society where there is a vibrant cultural life, where the creative economy is thriving. Torsten Wemblen, in his book, The Theory of the Leisure Class, tells us that, look, serious societies, they create a leisure space for people not just to entertain, but to also learn about their own lives. And I ask the question, what is it that has happened here in this country? Why have we lost the tradition, the culture of leisure?
As we celebrate practice and the practitioners of theater, I call upon all stakeholders, from policymakers to private investors, from public to private sector operators, from creatives to audiences and patrons, to join hands in revitalizing Nigeria's theater culture. We must invest in modern infrastructure that provides creatives with the needed tools to bring their visions to life. Permit me to digress here, talking about infrastructures. And the National Theatre, that edifice, is one structure that we are also very, very proud of. And that we thank the government for refurbishing that edifice in its present form.
The World Theatre Day, celebrated every 27th of March, had other artistic performances such as drama, music, and dance. Ozio Koli, Arise News, Lagos.
I don't know, Ozio Koli was so multi-talented.
You see, the only part of the report, lovely report I should say by Ozio, and congratulations to all the thespians out there who are there today, because theatre is actually the connecting rod, you know, of every society. And speaking of theatre, I know the immense role theatre did play when Zimbabwe was going through the Mugabe debacle. I remember there were some theatre artists that would go out there, perform social conscious theatre on rooftops of buildings, and they will be arrested. Even street theatre, and they'll be arrested. They were chronicling the things that were happening. But you see, the theme about theatre is it doesn't stop. It keeps chronicling the event and telling you what it's all about. And speaking of theatre in Nigeria, we know the role theatre played in the Western region. We know that theatre was so powerful that Herbert Ogunde had to be banned when he had that famous piece about the governance structure and the political imbroglio that happened here in the 60s. The only part that I saw that was missing was I didn't see Dr. Abati. So Diwu came and dancing.
I was also looking out for it.
And playing. He was just the professorial speech delivery person. Dr. Abati, maybe you will show us one of those moves.
What you're talking about that we had in Zimbabwe, in Tanzania, and other places, I talked about it yesterday. It's called applied theater. You know, when theater is used to define, you know, other species as an agent, as a tool, as a craft for change and development. We call it theater for development. We call it drama in education. And here in Nigeria, one of the most famous examples we had was the Samaru Theater Project. Now you got it right, Bimba, where you said street theater. They had this ideological theme at the Ahmadu Bello University in the 90s, you know, who applied theater on the basis of ideology. ABU had a lot of Marxists, and they thought they could use theater for social change. So Ogaba, you know, Brian Crow, Michael Etherton, Salihu Bakpa, Dr. Tunde Lakojo. I addressed all of that in the presentation yesterday. So how do you use theater? How do you center it properly as part of the cultural, the development, you know, process? And that's why I think there's a challenge for those who now talk about the creative economy in Nigeria. The theater is a melting pot. It is where you have the complexus of all the arts within the space, either the imagic arts or the visual arts or the plastic arts. You know, everything comes together there. So for us to achieve the objective of Destination 2030 of getting the creative economy to produce 10% of GDP, then you have to invest in every aspect and not ignore any. Unfortunately, live theater is in recession. Despite the efforts of the people like Shegun Ajila, people like Terra Culture, Bolale Austin Peters, Edgar Joseph, you know, with some of his performances. But we need a better structured approach, professional, clear, and a functional cultural policy, which is part of the problem. Anyway, I dealt with most of these issues yesterday, so let me repeat the lecture.
Dr. Abati, you should be there. Edgar Joseph is having Kashima with this weekend, the story of the life of Edgar.
I know, but these are private efforts. In more serious countries, you know, these things are better institutionalized. It's not about private effort, so that you have a structure for centering culture, arts, the creative economy as part of the development process. That's our argument.
And you have theatre as almost as an elite establishment. It is something that, you know, in other countries, theatre is something that is so celebrated, and those who come from it. And I do hope we can go back to those days because there's so much talent coming from it. So with the theme unbundling Nigeria's creative economy, that was a really good one. And thank you for that, Dr. Abati. President Bola Tinubu, while playing host to a delegation from the United States Congress, declared that his administration is committed to deepening democracy by ensuring adherence to the rule of law and expediting the sustainable provision of good governance, justice and fairness to all Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu has announced the conferment of national honors on 18 members of the Nigerian army who were killed in Delta State on March 14th. Tinubu also awarded scholarships to all their children and promised to provide a house for each of the families in any part of the country they desired. Now on to the foreign scene, where Chinese leader Xi Jinping has met more than a dozen U.S. CEOs and academics as Beijing renewed efforts to woo back foreign investors and mend strained relations with the United States. Now, Spanish prosecutors are seeking a prison term of 2 years and 6 months for former soccer chief Luis Rubiales for giving an unwanted kiss to star forward Jennifer Hermoso after Spain's World Cup victory. All right, now to an update on our breaking news story. The Nigerian Defense Headquarters has declared 8 persons wanted in connection with the killings of officers and soldiers in the Okwama community in the Ughelli South local government area of Delta State. The military authority made the announcement in a tweet on Thursday morning, March 28, stating that they were prime suspects in the killing of the Nigerian soldiers. All right.
All right, we'll see how this pans out. So the military has finally released some prime suspect. I'm sure they're going to follow up with the process, and let's see how all of this pans out. And this is just a day after, the soldiers were laid to rest. Investigations have been on all this while. There's been constant work and calming communities. So I should think this is based on the intelligence they've got and these people that are connected with all of this. But what we just condemn is also the assault on homes of well-meaning individuals in the Niger Delta that have no connection, no barrier. I think we've talked ad nauseum as regards the case of the invasion of the home of E.K. Clark in Kiagwada, although the military, we should also say, has apologized for that.
Well, yesterday at the burial of the 17 slain soldiers, both the president and the chief of army staff, Lieutenant General Taurid Lagbaja, made it clear that the government of Nigeria will stop at nothing to make sure that the perpetrators of the criminality in Okuama on March 14 are apprehended and brought to justice. And also that the traditional rulers and the elders of Okuama community have an obligation to expose those persons who murdered Nigerian soldiers on active duty. Now, the day after, we're being told by the military authorities that 8 persons have been declared wanted. Those 8 persons that have been declared wanted, the community, those traditional elders and leaders who were referred to yesterday by both the president and General Lagbaja, have a duty to make sure that these persons are produced. However, we're told that they are suspects. They've been declared wanted. They are innocent until they are proven guilty as having had a hand in the matter. And when they are interrogated, their rights also should be respected. I see that in the list there is a professor there, where these days you have all kinds of persons bearing all kinds of titles. Well, I don't know whether it's a real professor or whether his name is a professor. And I see a certain Ruben there. I may have to take out a copyright claim on the name Ruben, because a name that has been made famous by Mungo Betty. Remember Ruben. Please don't let them associate it with.
This one is fair. Let me check. Is it dark?
Okay. So because
this one is fair.
I also feel personally embarrassed, just as I feel terribly embarrassed that in my country, soldiers who are respected in other parts of the world will be attacked by the same people who are supposed to respect them. Who they are protecting. But in any case, the military authorities and the Nigerian government should just follow due process and not just pick people and demonize them unnecessarily, and to realize and understand that anybody that is accused of any act of felony also has rights under the law. So they are suspects until proven guilty.
Absolutely. Well, the manhunt continues for these gentlemen who have been on the run from various communities. And so we do hope that no VIPs is protecting them, no communities are protecting them, no elders are protecting them. Let them be produced so that they can clear their names if that's the case. And if not the case, they need to face the full wrath of the law.